Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Explore the Shires. I'm Matt Harrington, your host, and with me as always is Cat TV. We're here at Centerline Architects in downtown Bennington, Vermont. We're going to go meet with their team. They practically designed most of the buildings in the Shires and throughout the greater region. I want us to go explore some of the work that they've been doing over the last 30 years. Let's go meet with Gary and his team and see just what they've designed in the last 30. Let's go. Gary, how are you?
Hey Matt,
How you
good
doing?
to see you. Great.
So tell us a little bit about Centerline, how to get started, what have you been doing all these years?
Centerline got started about 30 years ago.
Okay.
We're in our 30th year right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I started out here in Bennington, up by the middle school.
Okay.
And then have had offices around on Main Street for the last 30 years. Ended up here.
What got you, what got you into the field of architecture, and then what made you start out on your own?
I got into the field of architecture when I was working for Bill Crozier, who was a contractor over in North Bennington. We were working on the Prospect School.
Okay.
And it was cold October day, and I was helping him build a set of steps and mixing mortar, and I was freezing my tush off.
Yeah.
And I said, I'd like to be drawing this rather than
That makes
making
sense.
it.
Yep.
I was about 14 years old then, and that sort of set me on a course to through courses in the high school and just understanding what an architect does.
Yep.
And sort of proceeded from there to end up.
And here you are 30 years later, and of course I think you would say most that Centerline is more than just you now, it's a full team of people.
Absolutely. I started Centerline because I wanted to have an architect's office that was made up of a team that really worked together, that actually built off of each other. We have ideas that get knocked around and that actually end up being I think a better design product.
Yeah.
Because of that. It's like collaborative work that we do with both clients and here in the office with people, and staff.
The team members are in there, right?
They are.
Can we go meet them?
How about if you come on in
Yeah,
and we'll
come
go
on,
meet
let's
them. This is Andy Buxbaum and
Hey, Andy.
Kelly Clark.
Hey.
And tell us what you're working on.
We're working on the Smith Arts Center, which is a new, well, it's actually a restoration project and repurposing of a building down at Camp Chimney Corners in Beckett, Massachusetts, girls' camp. That's part of the YMCA camp, which is across the lake. And we're doing some additions of a porch and changing some of the interior work to give them a better space to have meetings in and have productions in.
So this is St. Anthony Hall, and we're in the middle of construction on that
Okay.
down at Williams College.
Right. Yeah, this was a restoration of an old McKinley and White structure, which is an historic building which was built in about 1890. And we're refacing this courtyard and adding elevator and circulation space to bring the building up to code and give them again a better movement through the building itself. So it's a sensitive building because it's historic, and again, it's for Williams College, and they always are trying to put their best foot forward and do the best projects they can. So this is an exciting project for us.
Kind of an interesting project.
Would you say that that's kind of the signature of Centerline, the ability to kind of marry both kind of the historical nature of buildings as well as, I mean, most of our buildings probably at this point, there's an expectation that they get modernized in various ways.
Yeah, I would say that this is a great project as an example of that. I mean, As Gary mentioned, there are new pieces, components to this, but the college was very insistent, and we were as well, that the new pieces be sympathetic and contextual with the historic structures, and yet be brand new.
There's so many different parts and pieces to go into a building like this. There's historic preservation, there's the environmental sensitivity, there's meeting the code. It's incredibly difficult to bring a building like this up to meet modern code for accessibility, egress, lighting, all that stuff. So we've actually been working on this project for over 5 years now.
Wow.
Starting at the study stage and now almost done with construction.
And you're adding a layer of complexity with the additional certification to it, it sounds like.
Right. It was a very difficult project before, and adding that level on top of it is just a whole new ballgame.
Jen and Molly are talking with Kevin. Kevin's in our Burlington office. Hi, Kevin. And
So
you
you've got a Burlington office as well, which kind of, if you think of Vermont, you're down in Bennington, you're up in Burlington, you really do have kind of good comprehensive coverage throughout the state.
We do. And how long have we been up there, Kevin? We're in our 6th year?
I think around 5 years. Yeah, we're the only firm in Vermont that can do work up in Albrook and Pownell, and we have the two firms. There's not many places in Vermont, not many architecture firms in Vermont that have such a wide coverage. So
Great. So what are you guys working on today? It's cool to kind of see some telecommuting through, through Vermont even. So what's the project that's on tap for today for you guys?
We're actually planning for our 30th anniversary party.
Great.
So that's coming up in a few weeks. We're working on our layout and food menu and our mailing list. So we have a little bit of everything going on.
Well, we hope that we get an invite to the 30th, and we look forward to seeing what you guys come up with for that party.
Great.
Right? Yeah. Let's go into the next room.
Sure. Yeah.
thank you. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye, Kevin.
Bye-bye.
And so you get down right to the very detail, it looks like, in terms of the look, tone, and feel of carpet to wood to countertops to exterior. I mean, that's all. I think sometimes when people think of architects, they're thinking of drawing and stuff like that. But it sounds like in this modern day, it's a little bit of everything.
It absolutely is.
You
You
just show up
saw
with a
what was
finished
going
plan.
on with Andy in there with
Yeah.
a pencil and a sketch.
Yeah.
And so it's really that process of thinking all the way through to what is that material? Not just what is that material, but where does it go? What's the pattern?
Yeah, the grain of the wood and fir versus mahogany. What type of finish that has? Is it a clear stain or does it have some kind of tone to it? And what type of sheen? It gets really down to the detail there.
Right. And would you say, the detail and the materials matter to, I guess, the feeling you get when you walk into a building? And some people wouldn't think that, but I think from what I've heard, Centerline kind of really appreciates kind of the human being in and among the buildings that you're building.
Yeah, and it's a process, and that's what I think is the fun thing about what we have here in terms of our staff, is the idea for this building doesn't come from one person. It's us sitting down with that owner and talking to him about what he's looking for in a building, and then the actual, this piece, that's the rendering of what it came out to be. But it's really, it doesn't start there.
Yeah.
It starts with those bubble diagrams. It works its way through to this, and then it's also like the idea of the color, which was what sort of brought this project together. Was Todd was thinking about, this is a Victorian piece and then a new addition that goes along the back, and how do we tie our new and our existing together but actually make it a relevant building for today?
Yeah, the owners kind of enjoys a contemporary feel to things, and so taking a Victorian building and just trying to do something that kind of changes it up, and so it's
So in New England, you got your work cut out for you. I mean, I'm sure there isn't a building that isn't more than 50 years old that needs some sort of
Rehabilitation.
rehabilitation is a good word, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a SketchUp model, and I've created an animation from the SketchUp model of the building. And with this, we're able to place the building on the site, give context with the surrounding buildings to the owner, and show how the building interacts on the site. And we're able to show them every side angle of the building and kind of review how we want those pieces to interact with each other, and look at roof details, existing ornament on the building, and then we're also able to then take the owner inside the building and show them how you can travel through the spaces. You can see there's a corridor right down the center there, and develop the kind of private relationships of the spaces in the side. And you can see this is some of the program that Gary was talking about, the classroom spaces within the building, and then there's dining and kitchen spaces that you'll see next. And what we're looking at right now is in this stairwell here, we're trying to create some kind of mass that is an interesting aspect of the project. You can see here with Revit, we were able to create construction drawings of that, and this is actually what we want to go on site and talk to the client about. Okay. And we've selected some materials in the other room to review with them.
Perfect. Great. So here we are, Gary, at the first stop of our day at the writer's studio.
Yeah, so this is the old Prospect Nursing Home.
Okay.
And you can see then this historic part of the building that we've saved, and we're rebuilding the porches, bringing back the historic trim on the exterior of the building. So this will look as it did when it was built in the late 1800s. Okay. And then as we go back, we tore off insensitive additions, and we're putting on new additions that will tie into the back part of this house. Sleeping units in the back and built through here, and then classroom activity kitchen spaces on the main level. Great. So if you want to go in, we'll meet the owner.
Hi, gentlemen.
How's it going?
Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you.
Hi.
Ryan.
Oh, hi.
This is V, Hansman.
Hi, V. Good to see you.
Hello, Gary.
So what we've got going on today, Gary kind of gave us an overlay of what kind of the whole building, where it started, where you guys are moving it towards, but Gary, maybe you want to lead us through kind of what we're working on today?
Yeah, so you can start to see where we're laid out here, the existing building in there, and right about where this huge microlam is, the LVL, is where the new part of the building is coming in. And what we're looking at will be the kitchen over there. This will be a dining room, and that'll be a large assembly space for whatever things you might.
Classroom.
Yeah, readings in classroom.
There you go.
And so this is going to open up into the upper level. So we have some two-story space here, and a stair will wrap around a piece. And what we're going over with V today is what that piece is going to be and how that's going to look. And hopefully he's going to agree with us that it's the right application of materials and shape and form. This piece is right in here, sort of where this staging is going up. The comes in here, and what we're looking at in those elevations is that sculptural piece. It's really a sculptural piece that goes up and starts to narrow as it goes up, and the idea is intended to help us sort of accentuate this vertical space that's going on here. The stair will go up, turn around, and go to the back side of it.
Well, this is, I think it's terrific, actually. These woods are fine. I'm just following your lead.
All right. Well, so one of the things that we've been talking about is just which wood to use, and obviously this wood really has that grain. And when we look at fir, it has both the light. This is showing a single one, but it actually has light and dark that will be in it. So a little more movement, a little more just articulation of that space would happen with this wood. Rather, this is pretty uniform and stays pretty uniform.
I like the fir better.
Yeah, I do too.
I like the fir better.
The nice thing about the fir too is that the grain does, like, it has that vertical nature like you were talking about, and it does draw your eye subconsciously up through the space, and this is going to be a vaulted ceiling, so it's going to be a
Because we're
nice
holding
tight
those,
space.
right, and we're holding those boards apart so that you have both the lines of the joint as well as the lines that are in the wood.
It has depth and texture, and I think that's my choice.
Yeah, and I think the warmth of it's also the important part of this, because we're thinking the white walls, that most of this will be white walls in this area here.
Okay.
And then that will be sort of that accent piece, and the floors will be also a warm wood accent.
Right, and the stairs as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Here we are at spot number 2. And why do you want to show this one off, Gary?
Well, this was the first project as Centerline architects that we
30
did.
years ago.
30 years ago, actually. I've forgotten when we started construction. This is Richard Cutler, Dick Cutler from Cutler Construction. He built all of this, and what's it?
I think started in the main house like in 1980.
No, later than that.
Was it later than that?
86, 87, 86.
Yeah, I think, okay, mid 80s, yeah.
And then this was either fall of 89.
Yep, fall of 89.
And you saw some of the photos in the office. I showed him some of the photos that had that whole barn, how it was all opened up, and how we had to go in here. You can see where the foundation is. We had to dig that whole piece down. And I thought it'd just be kind of interesting to see the very first project that we did. Have Dick here walk through and sort of.
Yeah, because originally it was a dairy barn, cows and stuff, and all the stanchions were still there.
Yep.
So I had to take them all out and lower the grade.
Head height down there was probably
about
7.5 feet or something like that.
Hey, you want to go check it out?
Yeah, no, so we'll start here. I think we'll take a quick tour through the milk house. So this was a milk house, used to be tied to that. We separated the two. This has 2 bedrooms in it, I think.
I think so too. Yeah.
And so we can start down there. This was a milk house, and I can remember coming in here and having the smell, and it brought me back to when my dad was over at the Hull farm, the McCullough property. Smelled just like the exact same thing. It still had the tanks in it.
Here are some of the old cans.
Yeah. So this is all set up, designed for 13 bedrooms. I think we only have 11 of them actually in service at this point. There's upstairs where we had designed for them, and a stair that was to go up here. But a lot of this you'll see are salvage beams from the original barn. When we took this out, like we said, we had to dig this down. The ceiling height was here, so we dug 2.5, 3 feet down into the ground to actually put this in.
We literally had to take the whole back wall out so we could get all the equipment inside. Plus the back wall was starting to fail, so we had to reinforce it.
So this was the main screening room. So we had this set up so that you had screening equipment that would be back here, projection equipment, all wired out to this area out here for using this as screening. Yeah, so
Not bad for your first job.
no, this was it was a fun job.
You got somewhat of a idea.
Understanding of what you started with and where you ended up.
And shortly after we got all of this opened up, so you saw we took out the slab below, we took out the outside wall, we took out the floor up above because we had to reframe it all. So it had to be structural for human occupancy, both the roof and the.
We had to reinforce all the beams and everything.
And this was the writing room. So this was where they wrote Brooklyn Bridge, probably some of the early scripts for Spin City.
I didn't
And
do anything for Family Ties here, that was already going.
it was all done,
Yeah.
yeah. And then another couple of bedrooms out in here. The silo, as you see, comes down through the building here.
Oh, neat. Oh.
Yeah.
That was,
And then this is the main space, the function room. And it's set up, when we came in here with Gary, the one thing he said was, when I walk into the barn, I want it to look just like this. I want to see the boards. So these are all, the inside of this is all the original boards. We added dormers to get more light in, but those are all the construction is gone from the inside to the outside. You come in and the whole thing just opens up.
the old barn feeling is what he wanted.
Yeah.
So you pleased the customer, you did what the client wanted, and you put some of your own touches to it as well.
Yeah, I think that, well, Dick and I had a really good working relationship, and I think that helped make the first, I mean, it's a pretty big project to start with.
Yeah.
And having a good contractor to work with just made
Yeah.
like night and day. Made for a great experience.
That was a good time, it was a lot of fun.
And the fun way to walk it actually might be to follow the path of the wood chip.
Okay.
Which would be starting down around where the wood chips get
Yeah.
dropped off, and then sort of tracking all the equipment's not running right now because we're not burning wood chips right now, but I can explain that process and how it works. We are standing inside right now of the point at which the wood chips get dropped off. So when this garage door is open, a tractor trailer drives up and has in the back of the tractor trailer a thing called a walking floor, which is actually what this is too, which is a series of parallel panels that vibrate and shift next to each other and slowly move the material. So all the wood chips get dumped into this bin, and the walking floor slowly moves them to the end of the bin where those chains are, and then it drops onto a conveyor. All the wood chips to this hanging magnet here. That's actually a large electromagnet that pulls any debris out of the wood chips. So a lot of these wood chips come from forestry operations, are byproduct of forestry. So they'll take the smaller branches or the unusable parts of trees, and it also comes from site clearing operations in construction. So if they're clearing a new site, the wood that's harvested from that goes into this, and so sometimes there's pieces of metal or chain link fence. We don't want those going into the system, so the magnet pulls those out, and then this drops the wood chips onto this separate conveyor. Any wood chip that is smaller than these holes falls down through and moves separately from the bigger chips, which get moved onto this conveyor and brought up into this giant red object here, which is a hammer mill, which actually pulverizes the wood chips and breaks them down to a smaller size. So every wood chip has to be sort of consistently sized in order to not clog up the works and to burn properly.
We were charged with making sure it all fit inside the building and looked good from the outside, because essentially this, well, you can see how tall this is, so it's a major impact on the site.
On the campus even.
And the campus, right? And we knew that things were going to happen at the library. The plan was renovations were going to happen there. So how did this tie into that was a huge part of what we were involved with.
And you can see even from the inside the scale of this space. This is a 3 or 4 story tall space, but when you're on the outside of the building, you really just perceive one story of space. So integrating that into the site was, I think, a really key part of the design work that happened here. But this concrete box is the bin that all the wood chips get stored in. You can still see some leftover chips from last season sitting down there, and this row of pistons are basically wedge-headed pistons that drive into the bottom of the pile and pull backwards. So the wedge drives in, and then they scoop backwards and drop more chips onto this shaking conveyor that then brings chips over to this auger, which is a big spiral that moves the chips up into another auger that moves the chips up and then delivers them to a blower. And the blower actually brings chips by just blowing them with air pressure through this black pipe that you see, travels down and up and over and across, and then it enters into the next room. So you're a wood chip, and you're coming in, rounding the bend up here in this black pipe, and traveling across this space and down over to the head end of this boiler. This 2-story tall structure is the boiler. The bottom of it has the fire bed. Wood chips get blown right in through this, and then inside of this door is the whole fire bed. So when this is running, the entirety of that is just an orange burning hot bed of flame, and everything above this is basically a network of pipes that have water in them that gets turned to steam by that and then heads out. Then ash comes out of this, which is the byproduct of burning the wood, goes into this auger here, and this has a spiral auger which they've actually taken out for cleaning right there. It moves the ash up into these barrels, and then we send the barrels to a local company for use in fertilizers.
Initially, they thought about tearing this building down because it was sort of a nothing building, but it had a historic component to it, and the challenge was to understand what the building could be. The barn is the main academic classrooms and also administrative areas. So when we renovated this building, what we were looking for is a place, meeting space, a large meeting space, that then the idea and the concept was to save as much of the building as possible. And then as you come around here, you'll see what we did. It was essentially a carriage barn.
Okay. Yep.
And we took those wide openings that were like the doors, the garage doors that were in here, and we just sandwiched in glass between them, so it became a completely visible of what's going on inside and a vision of the campus from the outside. So it's kind of serving both functions, and it sort of went along with the idea of Bennington College, where transparency
exists.
on all levels is part of the nature of this college. We reuse the materials. If you can't really see from here, but if you see inside, the barn boards that we took off the inside of the building, we put back on. Used the dollars per square foot were really quite low on this.
Mm-hmm. Well, Gary, thank you so much for showing us around a couple
Thank
of your
you.
projects and introducing us to Centerline, and congratulations on 30 years.
Well, thank you very much.
To the next 30.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Explore the Shires. Join us next time. Oh, can you use it? Keep rolling. You gotta use it.
Oh!
30 on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yay!
I was gonna say, what's a clever thing you can say?
I have no clever things to say.
Oh, you're on the blooper reel now, Gary.